Hello. This video serves to show the tips for teaching speaking, submitted by Omar ID-AAMER, ID-AZZI, Mohamed SSIMOUH. Supervised by the Dr. Youssef TAMER. We would like to share with you the most important steps that we have in the content, because we have the introduction, elements of speaking, language features, which is divided into connected speech, different speaking events, and lexics and grammar, and then mental and social processing. First one, language processing. Second one, interactions with others. Third one, information processing. And then in the second part, we have teaching speaking strategies and activities. Strategies for developing speaking skills. First one, using murmur responses. Second one, using language to teach language. And the last one, using textbook speaking activities. Communication activities. Presentation and role play. Discussion. Then games. And of course, conclusion. English is the international language of business, politics, science, and communication. The British Council estimates there are over 1 billion people learning English worldwide. About 3/4 of those people live in non-speaking English countries. Teaching English as a foreign language, which is also known as teaching English to speakers of other languages, or English language teaching, involves the process of teaching English language to students whose mother tongue is not English. Many countries that engage in teaching English as a second or foreign language have been adopting various strategies and activities that could help to ameliorate the methods of teaching English as a significant subject in the curriculum. So, among all the other language skills, the mastery of speaking is priority for the majority of second language learners. For a person to progress well in society, only merits are not enough. Only qualifications do not work. The person needs powerful speaking skills so that he can put across to others what he wants them to do. It's all fine about speaking skills, but the question is how to improve these skills, because the effective skill that humans use to interact with one another as a social being. And the goal of a speaking class should not be only to encourage the process of learning speaking skills, but also to foster real communication in and out of the classroom. Thus, the instructors should do their best to provide their students with useful speaking activities. In this video, we intend to show the most significant issues in the area of teaching speaking. The first one, we are going to shed the light on the basic elements of speaking, and then introduce you some of the effective activities and strategies that function as tools to achieve fluency while speaking. Elements of speaking. The elements of speaking include two main parts that serve knowledge of language features and mental social processing. Language features. The elements that are quite important in spoken production are the following. Connected speech. Connected speech is the whole change that occurs when sounds get close or slide to each other. That is to say, when teaching speaking, the instructors are really going to teach construct words and phrases with individual sounds, because the effective speakers of English produce not only individual phonemes, as in saying I would have gone, but also fluent connected speech, as in I'd have gone. The student should know this by trying to say like this phrase with individual sounds, even if it requires a lot of time for instructors to show and convey its use to them. In connected speech, sounds are modified, that is to say, assimilation and omitted, or elision and linking sounds. Assimilation. In this, the sound at the end of one word changes to be more like the sound at the beginning of the next. Thus, the N at the end of green becomes an M when placed next a word starting with P. Example, green pen. And also changes to N when placed immediately before K. Example, pancake. An elision sometimes occurs when sounds are omitted or disappear into each other. For instance, can't finishes with sound T, but when it is placed next a word beginning with D, the T sound is totally omitted. Example, I can dance. And then linking sounds. This occurs between vowels, as in saying in law and order. In law and order, as the R sound takes place between the two vowels. Instructors asked to bring more light to features like elision and assimilation, fostering the following stages: comparing, identifying, and production. Comparing. This stage leads the instructors to start by showing students sentences and phrases with having them get pronounced in isolation. Example, the teacher says, I am going to see him tomorrow. The perfect process in which they will catch pronunciation is playing them a recorded sound of someone saying the sentence in normal connected speech. Example, I'm going to see him tomorrow. I'm waiting a student's feedback through asking them if they understand the differences they can hear. Identifying, a good way in which students improve their knowledge in terms of pronunciation is that their instructor say, for example, a phrase, and immediately they write out a form grammatical equivalent of what they hear. For instance, the teacher might say, I'd have come before, and expect them to jot down, I would have come before. Production. Teacher modeling and teaching phrases and sentences will give to students the connected version, including contractions where they are necessary, and get them to say phrases and sentences. Different speaking events. It is generally agreed that a speech event is an activity in which participants interact via language in some conventional way to arrive at some outcome. Thornbury classifies speaking events according to purpose, participation, and planning. Purpose. We have interpersonal purpose and transactional purpose. Interpersonal purpose serves to establish and maintain social relations. and transactional purpose focuses on the exchange of information and facilitates the exchange of goods and services. Participation. We have interactive participation and non-interactive. Interactive participation, as in everyday conversations between friends, that is to say, multi-party speeches. Non-interactive, leaving a message on an answer form. And then planning. In terms of planned and unplanned. Planned, speech genres such as public speeches and business representations are planned. This is to say that their linguistic features will resemble features of written language. Unplanned, on the other hand, conversations that take place spontaneously when bump into someone on the street or a phone conversation are normally not planned in advance. The third part, lexis and grammar. The shift from grammar to lexis is a change in the attitude of linguists. In the past, linguists were preoccupied with the grammar of language. Now, linguistics have pushed lexis to the forefront in the need of spontaneous speech for different functions such as agreeing or disagreeing, asking for advice or giving advice and the like. Therefore, teachers should supply a variety of phrases and expressions for different functions as in the following. Asking for, giving and responding to advice. The student may ask for advice. He may say, "What do you think I should do?" And "What do you suggest?" Or "What's your advice for?" When he intends to give an advice, he may say, "I think you should," or maybe, "It's a good idea not to," or "Why don't you?" and "If I were you, I would." In terms of responding to advice, he can say, "That's a good idea, thanks," or "Thank you for your advice, but I really." This is in terms of asking and giving and responding to advice. Expressing lack of understanding, interrupting and asking for clarification. When we are talking about expressing lack of understanding, we may say, "Could you say that again?" or "Repeat it please." "I beg your pardon. Am I not quite sure I follow you?" Interrupting. "Excuse me," or "Sorry, but," and "Excuse me for interrupting." When we intend asking for clarification, we may say, "What do you mean by?" or "Could you clarify that please?" and "Could you be more explicit?" When we are talking about making and responding to complaints about behavior. In terms of complaining, we may say, "Sorry to say it, but," or "Enough is enough," and "I am not satisfied with the way you," and "I have been patient long enough." But when we intend apologizing, we can say, "I do apologize," or "Sorry about that." In terms of accepting or and responding to apologize, we can say, "It's okay," or "Never mind," "It's not important," or don't worry about it. Rejecting a complaint, we can say, well, I am afraid. There is nothing we can do about it actually. And I am afraid. There isn't much we can do about it. After asking for and giving opinion. In terms of asking for opinion, everyone may say, what's your opinion about? Or what's your view about? How do you feel about? When we intend to give an opinion, we may mention, well, if you ask me, or in my point of view, or as far as I'm concerned, I think. In terms of responding to good and bad news, responding to good news, that's great, congratulations, that's wonderful, great news. But as far as concerning the bad news, we may say, I'm awfully sorry that, or I'm sorry to hear, or I hope there is nothing wrong. Expressions of agreement and disagreement. Agreeing. I agree. I certainly agree with that. I agree completely. As far as concerning disagreeing, we may say, I am afraid I don't agree, and I disagree with you, or I am sorry, but I disagree, or sorry to say, but you are wrong.
Mental and social processing. Here we'll talk about what is involved in speaking, emphasizing the point of speech production, since speaking is so much a part of daily life that we take it for granted. The title obviously implies two kinds of processing: mental processing and social processing. Speaking about the former, we'll try to get inside the head of a language speaker to discover what exactly happens when thoughts become utterances, while in the latter we'll include sociocultural knowledge, that is, knowledge that affects speaking, such as topic, cultural knowledge, context, familiarities with other speakers, and turn-taking. Before going any further, one may inquire, why do we need to know about speaking processes? This obvious yet fundamental question has to do with the purposes behind tackling such issue. In fact, this question offers a guideline for this study to have an end. Generally speaking, there are two main reasons for studying mental and social processing. The first one is to offer a key to the understanding of the way things are and why they are that way, meaning to satisfy human curiosity to know more about this daily life activity. This would bring about development in our understanding of this era and leads in turn to human prosperity. The second purpose is to provide teachers with studies so that they may better comprehend forces that influence their profession. A teacher is responsible for new waves of students each year in his classroom. The more he knows about social and mental processing developments of students, the more he can understand at what level it is appropriate to teach them. Now, let's go back in history to enlarge our minds concerning the background of mental and social processing. Several historical markers can be identified approximately. The computer revolution of 1940s, leading turn to a cognitive revolution in psychology during 1950s and 1960s. The focus was upon information processing, leading to an interest in internal and mental processes. rather than just the overt behavior that had been dominated during the preceding 50 years. For social processing, sociologists agree that the advent of the internet has allowed people to be in contact with others whom they would not be able to meet under different circumstances due to geographical distance or status. Besides, the social information processing theory is one of the models that have been developed to explain the nature of this interaction. According to this theory, people are motivated regardless of the medium they use. Also, it contrasts other models that suggest computer-mediated communication. Language processing. Language processing involves the retrieval of words and phrases from memory and their assembly to syntactically and propositional sequences. It consists at least of 3 stages: conceptualization, formulation, and articulation. Conceptualization is the generating and the encoding of intentions into a coherent plan, in addition to monitoring what is about to be said and what has been said. Formulation. In this stage, the speaker must convert the message into a linguistic form. It also involves lexicalization and syntactic planning. Articulation. In this stage, speakers must plan motor movement needed to convey the message. Language primarily processed in the left hemisphere of the brain. The two main language processing centers, Wernicke's area and Broca's area, both situated on the left hemisphere of the brain. Wernicke's area plays a crucial role in comprehension and selection of words when producing a sentence, whereas Broca's area is responsible for articulation of words and the control of grammatical language use. Wernicke's area and Broca's area are connected by arcuate fasciculus. These are a bundle of nerve fibers which allow the Wernicke's area and Broca's area that they connect to share information, and without them, we would not be able to look up words in a mental lexicon via Wernicke's area and then say them via Broca's area. It's all fine about language processing, but the challenge is how to include it in teaching speaking curriculum. Engaging in TEFL courses teaching, instructors are required to create the environment in which language processing is likely to be achieved. Here, speaking activities are very useful, and as Jeremy Harmon states, one of the main reasons for including speaking activities in language lessons is to develop students' habit of rapid language processing in English. Contributed to this idea is that successive practice helps to increasingly automate knowledge, and the only significance we can claim to practice is making, if not perfect, at least fluent. So far, we have been describing what speakers do as if they were speaking in a kind of vacuum. But of course, most speaking takes the form of face-to-face dialogue and therefore involves interaction. Even in monologic speaking, such as lectures, political speeches, and stand-up comedy, most speakers adjust their delivery to take into account the response of their audience. Interaction has its own characteristics within people's similar culture and linguistic backgrounds. Certain conventions should be taken into consideration. Among these, we suggest the following areas of rules. Social rules. This rule is about social values and norms of behavior in a given society, including the way these values and norms are realized through language. Sociocultural rules can be both linguistic and extra-linguistic. Knowing whether people in a given culture shake hands on meeting, or embrace or bow is extra-linguistic. Knowing what they say when greeting each other is clearly linguistic. Turn taking. A turn is the duration of one speaker's contribution to the talk before yielding to or being interrupted by other speaker. This rule implies that no two speakers should be speaking at once, at least not for any sustained period of time. The scale by which this rule is observed including recognizing the appropriate moment to get a turn, signaling the fact that you want to speak, holding the floor while you have your turn, yielding the turn. Interaction is a part in teaching and learning process, so teachers are asked to make learners aware of the importance of language use in maintaining good social relationships. Also, they are required to invent the activities in which interaction is taking place. Information processing. Information processing refers to the procedures that take place while information is modified so that we eventually come to an observed influence. The information processing approach is a cognitive approach in which people manipulate information, monitor it, and strategize about it. Central to this approach are the cognitive processes of memory and thinking. Information processing model is a theoretical framework which views human cognitive performing in the same way as a computer. This model considered to be the result of significant works and studies that are devoted by the majority of American psychologists. Information processing model provides a description of a sequence of stages through which information processing is accomplished. Hence, the increased understanding of this model would be helpful for the curriculum, that is, through supplying teachers with suggestions for improving the teaching and learning processes. As what Gang said, information that is not attended to does not enter into the information processing system. That is to say that the impact of information processing model in learning tasks would be surely limited without the student's attention.
Then in the second part, teaching speaking strategies and activities. A. Strategies for developing speaking skills. It is generally agreed that the ability to speak a language is the product of language learning. As well as, speaking learning process is a hard part of a language. Hence, the effective instructors should be aware of the useful strategies and apply it while teaching speaking. Among those strategies, we can consider the following. First of all, using minimal responses. This stage is a great step for learners who lack confidence in their ability to participate with each other in their oral interaction in a successful way, because it helps them to interact using minimal responses such as understanding, agreement, doubt, and so on. By this step, students stock such responses that enables them to focus on what the other participants are talking about, and that without having to simultaneously plan a response. Secondly, using language to teach language. As much known, language of instructors and curriculum vary from country to country, region to region, and even from school to school due to different approaches used by teachers, as well as different characteristics of individuals involved in the process of learning. But conversely, Mercer explained some ways of using language in a given interaction between teachers and students are almost the same throughout the world. The first one is the use of intonation response feedback. That is to say, teachers very often speak more than any other student. And also, they ask all questions in that the main purposes are either to trigger students' participatory response or direct the content. Then they evaluate the answers. Next one, code switching, which is the shift from English language to mother tongues, either for control purposes or to make personal comments. On one hand,
those who support this strategy think that it is a sensible response to certain kind of teaching situations. On the other hand, researchers in bilingual code switching think that this strategy may prevent students from developing English language proficiency. Then, using textbook speaking activities. Standard textbook activities are widely used in teaching activities in general and speaking activities in particular. This method helps students to get involved in classroom activities, also helpful for beginning teachers because it gives them all plans and lessons that they need to cover in a topic in some details. But a good teacher should be aware that a standard book can have its weakness and students may face difficulties, and also he should provide some ways of overcoming those problems. That is, a textbook can be considered just as a tool, perhaps an important tool, but cannot be the only official background for a good teacher. Thus, one should use it and take in consideration a text just as a guide, not a mandate that should be obeyed in teaching. Then, communication activities. The communication activity is regarded as the most convenient practice. In general, communicative tasks have two functions. The first one serves to prepare learners for real-life language use. The second helps to automate the language knowledge. First one, presentation and role play. A. Presentation is a prepared talk about a chosen topic delivered by a single student or a group in front of an audience. For students to benefit from oral presentation, it needs to practice in front of peers or small group first, as well as the aid of the teacher in terms of what is technical, as how to attract the audience attention and how to deal with it to avoid shyness and stress. In addition to how to make your audience feel comfortable using humor. Being a good humor means be a good public speaker, and bear in mind that a good orator should be able to change the emotion of their listeners, not only to inform them. One also should be aware of the 9 P's of public speaking, which are prior, proper preparation, prevents poor performance of the person put in the presentation, and also the 10 steps that Lenny Laskowski associated, which are know the room, know the audience, know your materials, learn how to relax, visualize yourself speaking, realize people who want you to succeed, do not apologize for being nervous, concentrate on your message, turn nervous into positive energy, and finally gain the experience. To sum up, the 9 P's of public speaking and the 10 steps by Laskowski and enough preparation and to rehearse should make a public speaker able to deliver a significant piece of speech, not only orally but also using body language, eye contact, voice projection, and fluent gesture in the right way. Then, role play, which is a learning activity in which you behave in the way somebody else would behave in a particular situation. Here, 5 steps are for using role play in classrooms. The first one is be practical. As much known, practice makes perfect. For example, a teacher asked them the role play about their problems within relationships among their neighborhood. This will be better than a student speaking about problems with an alien. As well as this realistic situation gets students practice essential vocabulary and phrases. Next, all in details. Teacher provides students with enough information about the situation when setting up a role play, without ignoring leaving a gap for enough imagination to allow the student to construct their speech on the spot. Next one, printed vocabulary and conversational phrases. This is a good way to enforce the vocabulary you have been teaching in a classroom using basic scenarios on themes using role play. Next, mix up activities. What makes roleplay very important is being adaptable. But if you keep doing normal roleplays frequently in the classroom, it may affect the result negatively. Thus, changing the activity slightly, students cannot become bored unless motivated. And finally, record and reflect. Roleplay has a great role in the class, but students often do not get a feedback from the teacher. Thus, a good teacher should take notes while students are speaking, then give feedback after their roleplay is completed. Secondly, discussion. Many students suffer from discussion fails not only if they try to speak to their teacher, but also to give an opinion or an addition, particularly when they are not confident in themselves. To overcome this problem, some suggestions are as follows. First one, buzz group. All it means if the students have a chance of think of ideas and the language to express level of that the eventual whole class performance is reduced. For example, a process that instructors follow to guide students in order that they read, for instance, a text and give the reaction of it with a small discussion after they read that text. Secondly, formal debate. Is definitely an opposite of informal buzz group. In this, students prepare arguments in favor or against several propositions. Then finally, balloon debate. It is based on scenario in which a group of people are traveling in a basket of balloon. Unfortunately, however, the balloon cannot take their weight. There is a lake, and unless someone leaves the balloon, they will all die. Students take on the role of a real person after they argue about what they are should be the survivors that can be individually or pairs or groups. Then games. The first type is information gap. It's a classical communication game which one student has information that other lacks. As an example, jigsaw activity. In this, first thing to do is segmentation of class into 4 groups. Each member of the 4 groups should have a number 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. The teacher then flashes only one picture per group for a few seconds. Then, members of each group leave their original groups to form new ones. So, all number 1 form a group, all number 2 form a group, all number 3 form a group, and so on. Students are typically required to achieve 3 tasks. Number 1, each member describe what he saw. Number 2, decide together the sequence of the story event. And finally, decide any difference of opinion that might arise. For example, who was to blame in a traffic accident. Second type is info gap race. Here, the class is divided into 2 teams. Each of them have a representative at the board, which in turn divided into 2 parts by a lane down in the middle. Then a group of different design included geometrical shapes are displayed to all of the class except the 2 representatives at the board. After that, the teacher chooses one shape and shows it to the 2 teams. The race begins at this point. Each team tries to describe the chosen design to its representative. The finishing line crossed by the first team to draw a shape similar to the one dictated. And the second type is television and radio games. Games which are originally designed for television or radio often provide useful fluency activities when imported to classroom. Example, for this game we have 20 questions, which is a guessing game in which a learner or a shared person thinks of a person, object or job, and the others have to guess what it is, asking yes or no questions. As an instance of this, the shared person asks the team, "What is my line?" thinking of certain job, and the team has to find it, asking questions such as, "Do you work indoor or outdoor?" Do you work with your hand? Do you wear uniform? If they get the answer in 3 questions, they get 2 points. Another example is Call My Bluff, which is a competitive game which involves 2 teams. Team A is given a word which is unlikely to know by the team B. Then the team A looks for the definition in the dictionary. Then they create 2 false ones. They read out the 3 definitions and the team B is requested to guess the right answer. Thus the winner team is the one who can figure out the right definition.
Clearly, teaching speaking is a very important part of a second language learning. The ability to speak a second language clearly and efficiently contributes to the success of learner in school and success later in every phase of life. Therefore, it is essential that language teachers should pay great attention to teaching speaking rather than leading students to pure memorization, providing a rich environment where meaningful communication is desired.